Hello, everybody. My name is Mackenzie Temez, and today I will be going over my presentation on the implementation of brief motivational intervention for alcohol and other drugs using Lennox College students. So here is everything that I will be going over today. I will be starting with the summary of the article that I just read, motivational interviewing, which is the intervention that was used, describing the sample size, going over the credentials for the people that conducted this study, the methods and results, then the conclusion of the article, going over the logic model, and then lastly with the cipher questions. So the background of this article was done on the substance abuse with alcohol and other drugs using college students. The focus of this study was to understand the increase with alcohol and drug abuse problems among college students and how it's significantly increased since 2019, which has led to poor academic values, has negatively affected cognitive development, and can have serious harm or injury to individuals, and has increased sexual assault throughout colleges, and just creates bad habits that can affect people for the rest of their lives. And so that was the focus of understanding this study and implementing motivational interviewing to move away from the substance abuse. But it was on alcohol and marijuana were the two main substances, but there were also other drugs that were used by the people in this study. It was just on college students, and it was part mainly of the Latina population, but there were other populations that were a part of this study. For the evidence-based theory, motivational interviewing was the main intervention that was used. So the motivational interviewing was combined with cognitive behavioral therapy and strategies to decrease alcohol and drug use. Motivational interviewing collaborates with the individual and focuses on the client's goals. We learn about the client's thought process and their stages of change and how they want to implement change, or even then creating a readiness to change different life habits in their life, but it is mainly all about the client and what they're comfortable with. This study also used guided self-change, where it is also part of a student-focused and intervention where students would meet for times in total for face-to-face sessions. They wanted to try even a short-term amount of this intervention to see if it was effective, which can obviously impact the results, but also help the access to care if they have more students, but not everyone is getting the help that they need. And so each session had a structure to address the following of motivational interviewing, which I'll go over later in the PowerPoint, and then made a treatment plan suitable for each student that went over specifically the substance abuse that they have and the different parts of their life where they're using alcohol more, or just where to be more aware of that and how it's affecting. And so that is a little bit about motivational interviewing and then the guide self-change. So for a meta-analysis on motivational interviewing, this is an evidence-based practice that has proven to be successful when compared to a control group. After the intervention, there has been a quantitative increase with multiple points being measured. This means that what was tested, like the motivational interviewing and helping substance abuse, there was a decrease in multiple studies that motivational interviewing was successful, and in different peer-reviewed studies where it has been researched multiple times. For this study specifically, students took a pre and post survey that measured effectiveness of the intervention. This went over their stages of change, how they felt about wanting to change their habits, and where they were or were not motivated going forward to evaluate how they felt before and then after the 4 sessions meeting. Motivational interviewing and guide self-change. They are both, and when it uses cognitive behavioral therapy too, it is well-researched, evidence-based theory that is tailored to the individual specifically and what they are going through, and it has been successful in the research so far. So specifically in this study, students were taken from referrals for the Student Counseling Service Center. So this could have been from classmates, professors, other people on campus in the counseling center, even people that also just attended the counseling center on a college campus. The average age was 24 years old. There was a total of 38 females that participated and 35 males. The primary substances that were the focus of this intervention that college students dealt with was alcohol and marijuana, but there were other drugs and substances used, but those were the 2 main that the students would use the most frequently and had the easiest access to, especially alcohol on a college campus. The ethnicity mix, and so the title includes Latinx, but there were multiple different ethnicities and races that were included, listed as Hispanic, non-Hispanic, or Latino Hispanic, white, black, African American, Asian, and Alaskan Native. So there was a range of different diverse populations. Also, a part of this study was the focus on reaching diverse populations and how they might have different access to cares from not being the majority of the population. So the summary of the credentials of the intervention. So this is a peer-reviewed article, and it was in the Journal of American College Health that was listed in August/September 2024. The authors, credentials, and affiliations. Community-Based Research Institute, Florida International University. Robert Stempel College of Public Health and Social Work, Florida International. Department of Biostatistics, Florida International University. And so this shows that there is a social work background with this intervention, but also how it is recognized from trusted sources from a statistical point of view. So for the summary of the methods in the results section, there was a significant increase in the confidence to change, readiness to change, and the importance to change. These are major parts of motivational interviewing and shows where the intervention was successful. There was a decrease in alcohol use and a significant decrease in binge drinking. There was a significant decrease in marijuana use as well. So 2 of the main things that were measured showed decrease, but specifically more in the drinking and marijuana. The results were taken 30 days after the intervention was completed. So this is important to know because they met for the 4 sessions, which was once a week for an hour. And then they didn't take the results of how it impacted their lives until 30 days after, which I think is important because it proves the long-lasting effectiveness of the motivational interviewing with the 4 sessions, because it wasn't taken just the week after, but even 30 days after it was completed. The intervention was successful in decreasing alcohol and drug use, and the biggest difference after the intervention was an increase in the readiness to change. So the summary of the conclusion section, motivational interviewing and guided self-change, was proven to be successful intervention for alcohol and other substance use, specifically in college students and in diverse populations. This is a promising intervention for college campuses that have diverse populations, but also in general because it worked on a wide range of race and ethnicities. Motivational interviewing and guided self-change can be tailored services and programs and treatments to each person and university. That is where this can be very successful long-term. There is an urgent need for interventions to help with college students in substance abuse. This has been an issue increasing since 2019 for a lot of different reasons, socially with social media, or just what the idea of is to go to college and party and binge drink and use drugs, which can affect people long term. And so right now there is a need for help in this area, but not enough. But what is helpful is how motivational interviewing can be used and tailored program and services to colleges all around the country. So the different logical models of motivational interviewing is there are different stages of change that can be explained to the facilitator of motivational interviewing is just helpful to know, and different parts of the motivational interviewing plan change process. So first, before change, there is the pre-contemplation stage, which is deciding whether or not the individual even wants to change. Then they make that decision in the contemplation stage. The next is preparing for the action of what they want to change and how they're going to implement it in their life. Next is the action of how they are implementing the different actions of avoiding using alcohol or staying away from marijuana, or just even places where they could use that more. Each treatment is specific and tailored to the individual and where they are the most tempted to use those different things. Then there's a maintenance period, which is just a checking in of how they're doing with implementing the change. And then termination, is the last part of the process, which is about if is proven to be successful and the client does not need to be helped anymore, especially with the motivational interviewing, and has proven to follow through with what they wanted to focus and change, then that is the last part of the process. So when it comes to facilitating motivational interviewing, the steps are engaging with the client, focusing on what they want to change, the invoking part, and engaging what's specific to them, and then planning a treatment plan. So those are the logistical ways to implement motivational interview and guided self-change for individuals, for college students that have substance abuse and alcohol or marijuana abuse on a college campus. So for the 3 cipher questions to evaluate the intervention, the sum I have are, the first one is, what part of the intervention, motivational interviewing and guide self-change, will be the most difficult to implement on college campuses? The next question is, how does motivational interviewing and guided self-change address the needs for improving substance abuse in college students? And then lastly, how do college students feel about the intervention, and how does that affect the results of motivational interviewing and guided self-change? Here is the reference from the article about the motivational intervention for alcohol and other drugs in college students. Thank you for listening to my presentation. This was very interesting to research. I took a motivational interviewing class last semester, and it was very interesting seeing how that was used with alcohol and other substances, like we learned about in mental health disorders, And I think that the results were successful and proven to be successful in the study, and it is helpful to know going forward in counseling settings with working with clients and creating a plan that's specific for them and every situation that they want to change and adjust in their life. Thank you for listening.